What's going on, bro? Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be here to chop it up with you. And
Sounds good, man. I don't know if we really need to do an intro for our guest today. He's a Woodruff legend. Went on to play basketball at St. FX. Went on to play professional in Belgium, Romania. Was also on Team Canada. Mr. Trench Life himself, Garry Gallimore. How's it going, man?
everything is well, man. I'm just happy to be here and, share my story and obviously catch up with you because you and I also have some history from back in the day. So
Sounds good. We played a year at Phoenix, so I'm super excited. I hope that intro gave you justice because you're, early 2000s. You're a real I would say a real pillar in Ottawa basketball. So even though I went to St. Pat's, you went to Woodruff. There was before, a couple of years before me, but there's some real battles. So hopefully we can squash all that Woodruff St. Pat's beef today.
Yeah, not a problem, man. But yeah, there's definitely some great history there. I always think about what it was back in the day, and I remember in my junior year where it was Woodruff seniors and juniors in the finals versus St. Pat's seniors and juniors in the finals. So that's what it was. St. Pat's back then was the team in the city, but when you broke it up east-west, it was Woodruff in the west and it was St. Pat's.
As long as you don't say Sammy G, we're good, man, because they weren't. But let's get into this, man. So, proud Jamaican.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how it was growing up as a Jamaican Canadian. Were you born in Canada? What's kind of like your background? Fill us in on that.
I was born in Jamaica, 1984. Moved here to Ottawa with my father and my older brother. My mother came a couple years before us.
Okay.
So we moved here, West End of Ottawa, and that's kind of where I grew up. The West End, Britannia, Bayshore, Pinecrest, Ramsey area for most of my youth.
Nice. And how was it growing up in a Jamaican household?
Well, fortunately for me, I grew up with both parents. My parents are religious; they're Christians, so I grew up in a Jamaican Christian household.
Nice.
Coming to Canada, my parents' goals were different from my brother and I. It was that we weren't coming here to have a good time or a party or whatever.
Yeah.
We're coming here to get an education because ultimately they gave up everything they had to give us a better life as they saw it. Coming here was for us to have a better life. So growing up in our household, it was strictly business. You went to church on Sunday. Went to church probably 4 times a week, to be honest.
Nice.
And then school was also the big part of it was, getting an education. That was before everything, before basketball, before leisure, before anything. It was church and it was school. And, fortunately, my older brother, he's a very intelligent guy. He's an honor roll student. So he set a good example for me, even though it took a while for me to catch on because I was not not that I wasn't the smart guy, but I was not the easily motivated into school guy.
Yeah.
And eventually I caught on, and then the rest is history.
Nice. And I guess being a younger brother myself, having a positive role model and influence in your life plays a long part. Not only helps you in sports because you got an older brother beating you up and on you and whatnot, but definitely helps you out. So quickly, life in Jamaica. What do you remember? I know you said you came here when you were about 9, but what was life in Jamaica, man?
I came here when I was 9. So I most of my childhood, I still remember a lot of fond memories there. So my whole family was there. So I come from a pretty big family.
Okay.
I grew up with a lot of my cousins and my aunts and stuff like that. My father and my brother and I remember spending most of our time together because I said my mother had came to Canada a couple years before us. So my father's mother, my grandmother, pretty much there was generations and generations living in her house. Yeah. So we spent most of our time there hanging out and growing with our cousins and stuff like that. My father was also a farmer, so a lot of times when we weren't in school, we'd be helping him out doing his farm work. In Jamaica, planting yams is a big thing. Okay. And that's what his crops were, yams, corn, and we had some livestock. So that's what it was.
Do you remember when you were young, and now I guess, I'm stealing a little thunder for later on, but when you were young, was it something you disliked, or do you now look at it back and say, wow, this was a good lesson that my father probably taught us? He probably didn't need us, but, got us involved.
No, I enjoyed it because, I loved my father from a young age. So he was always somebody I was fortunate to look up to from a young age. So spending time with him was something that me and my brother pretty much that was our thing, right?
Nice.
So whenever we got a chance to go in the fields with him, it was like going to a candy store. Not that we were much help, because we were kids, but, he taught us we saw him work, and he was a hard worker, like a sun up to sundown kind of guy. So that's kind of like seeing that work ethic early. You know, if you know anything about me or my brothers, is that, you know, our work ethic is not that it's impeccable, but we're passionate about committing to do work to achieve things that we want.
Nice. I you know, seeing you play basketball, you're definitely a guy that gives it all. So when you say that, that was probably kind of like the start of shaping your character. So yeah, man, you got a lot to owe to your father. So definitely. Sports, any sports in Jamaica real quick that you played?
Yeah, so sports for us is the big thing growing up for me actually was track and field. That was like the main events, especially at school. Like we had our school events, but I played soccer leisurely, and I played cricket. Cricket was the other big thing for us, especially in the 90s, 80s, 90s. Cricket was a hit in Jamaica. So
is it still popular now in Jamaica?
It is still popular, but I think
they do like a West Indies team.
Yeah, the West Indies. Yeah,
so I know it's very popular in like India. Pakistan.
Right. So our team would be the West Indies, which is a collaboration of most of the Caribbean islands and stuff like that. So
nice. Okay, so you come to Canada. You know, I'm sure you were. I don't know what month you came. Do you remember what month you came?
Yeah, June 4th, 1993.
So you were probably like, okay, this place is nice. And then winter came, and it was a different story. First time seeing snow. So. How was it, you know, acclimating to Canadian society, and then talk about how you got into basketball?
Right. So, again, growing up in Jamaica, I think a lot of Jamaicans, especially kids, like, you know, you dream about going away because you hear so much good things about what life is like in what we call foreign countries, which is
it's similar to like the Lebanese culture where.
Which
the American dream.
Exactly. So those countries that Jamaicans frequent at the time were Canada, the U.S., and the U.K. Yeah. So that's where we knew people were always traveling to those places, and obviously they'd come back with nice things and all that kind of stuff. So when we got a chance to come, like, you know, it was like, even though we were proud of where we were coming from, you know, it was kind of like you're elevating yourself, you know what I'm saying? But when you get here, you realize how important and how valuable where you're coming from is. Correct. Because Canadian culture is really a bunch of cultures combined together, and it's like a melting pot. So.
I mean, I've told people before. I remember having a conversation with someone a couple of years back and telling him, and I said, man, the only difference, he was Canadian. Yeah. So the only difference between me and you is my father came here in the 70s. Your great grandfather came 100 years before. Yeah, there's no real difference, man. Everyone is an immigrant. So that's cool.
Exactly.
And then basketball. How did you get into basketball? Did you play other sports as a kid?
No, I didn't really play other sports as a kid. Obviously, we did stuff in gym class. That's a given. Track and field was like that one-day event, like once a year. So basketball was just something, you know, just playing with my friends. And then just out of the blue, I think it was in grade 8, a couple of my friends wanted to go try out for Bobcats at the time, and I went along with them. Okay. And, you know, we actually were trying out, and we actually asked the coach to put us on the B team.
So you guys can all play together?
Yeah, but we were better than we thought, so we all ended up making the A team and ended up playing together. So, and then from there, got to high school, and then I was at Bell High School in grade 9, transferred to Woodruff in grade 10, met this lady, Adrian Cadet, who took a liking to me as a person. Well, she knew my brother because my brother was already there. So I had her expectation for me was already set.
So what was the reason you went to Bell? Because I thought you were a true Woodruff player.
Yeah, I know, man. But I lived in Bayshore at the time. Okay. So I think it was like that Nepean Ottawa border or whatever. I was just on the other side of the border. So yeah, I went to Bell High School.
Woodruff Adrian must have been upset they didn't get you in grade 9.
Yeah, and then I moved. And after that, we moved to Ramsey, which is just on the other side of that Nepean Ottawa border. So it was like a no-brainer. And I knew a lot of people that were going to Woodruff in grade 9. So I was like, yo, this ball team's about to be sick. So I was like, let's have it, man. Yeah.
Meant to be. So you play Woodruff. Yeah. You know, Woodruff was a strong team. We talked about it early. Mm-hmm. When I look back, obviously, you're kind of like the era of my brother. Mm-hmm. I'm a couple of years younger than you. I remember teams like Woodruff, St. Pat's, Sammy G. L'Oreal was not bad as well.
L'Oreal was always in the conversation.
So those were the teams. I don't know if I'm missing anyone else. Even Canada had a decent team. If I'm not mistaken.
Holy Trinity was a team out of Canada at the time. I think Hillcrest was pretty
decent. Hillcrest was good too. Hillcrest was good too. So looking back at your high school career, obviously you were a city all-star. You were, making some noise. You were playing with Phoenix at the time. Mm-hmm. When did you start thinking like, man, I'm good at this. I know how to do this. When you started to beat your brother at basketball, when did it kind of click for you?
Kind of clicked for me probably, I'd say, maybe that grade 10 year at Woodruff playing for Adrian Cadet, because she was like a coach that I needed in my life. You know what I'm saying? Because she didn't just she didn't settle for mediocrity. and I like toughness. You know, I pride myself on being a tough player, so I like toughness. I like the way she coached. And then, you know, she invited me out to play for her Phoenix club team. I was grade 10. Everybody else that was there were senior. Dion was there.
Okay.
You know, Alain Vixmar was there. Guys that played at St. Pat's that were on those good St. Pat's teams. These guys were now Phoenix
That's when
guys.
it was always C years too. These guys were men at that
exactly.
point.
And I was grade 10, so and I was there, and I was holding my own fair enough to make the team. So, and then they took a liking to me, so they kind of groomed me behind those guys. And in a sense, all those guys that, you know, we're playing, I watched my brother play against at Woodruff St. Pat's matches and stuff like that. Now these guys are looking out for me, so that made me feel really not important, but feel like there was something there, and I just being able to compete with them, I was able to find a passion, and then from there it just Miss Cadet and then Andy Waterman and them working together.
Correct.
They were always seemingly putting me in places where like I could only imagine in terms of things to do with basketball. So from there, they just always had something for me to do or a new next challenge for me, which helped me grow and also helped grow my passion for the game.
Yeah, I mean, Andy, Coach Waterman was no joke. When I think, I mean, this was years ago, probably 2002, 2003, maybe 2004, I played there. 17s come to my mind. I remember the 17s.
17.
He was, you know, outside of basketball, he was kind of like a gentle giant. But man, when he coached, he
stepped on the court. It was business.
Yeah.
And back, you know, just to touch on the 17s, I remember that's a lot of that was a major deterrence for a lot of guys in the city. Yeah. You guys run too much, whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm just thinking like, you can't play basketball at a high level with poor cardio.
Correct. And I don't understand how, like, looking back as a kid, I never understood that too, because, man, I used to do beep tests and I was just running for fun. You just run. It was nothing. But for some people, I guess they really were really out of shape. Maybe it's the home cooking wasn't as good.
Maybe. But for me, I was just like, well, the 17s I hated. I'm not going to deny it. I hate the 17s. I hate running for too long, but sprints and all that kind of stuff, I like that, especially game situation sprints. That stuff was good. So I was always, when it was time to go, I was always in good shape based on obviously their coaching and their training. So I benefited greatly from them, despite what anybody may say about their experience. I benefited greatly from that Phoenix program and from having Adrian and Andy obviously backing me in everything I was doing.
Yeah, I know they're big mentors in your life and for a lot of other players too. So high school is coming near to an end. Mm-hmm. You know, you're probably, you know, thinking about where you're going to go. Where did you have offers? I don't know if you ever talked about this before, but you ended up going to St. FX.
Yeah, ended up going to St. FX. Obviously, you know, at that time, a lot of us Ottawa guys, obviously, that played basketball, anybody that played basketball wanted to go to the NCAA.
Correct.
We wanted to play D1, and at those, and back in that time, it was kind of scarce because, again, Ottawa wasn't really on the map like that.
Yeah.
All the guys that were getting the big scholarships to the big schools were in Toronto or Vancouver. Ottawa guys were just not getting those looks, but we'd be trying our best. We'd be going to tournaments.
And you'd be holding your own.
Yeah, and we'd be holding our own, but it's just something wasn't really, like, connecting for some reason. But in my last year, I had a few small D1s. I had Canisius that was interested. I had Maine Black Bears that were interested, Binghamton, and that's just from like going to tournaments with Andy and them.
Yeah.
But I remember in my last year of high school, I went to a tournament in what was it, Hamilton, the Silver Fox tournament, which was a big tournament. You know that. And there was a school, UNC Wilmington. They saw me play and they took a liking to me, and they were on me for a little bit. But I was kind of like, I wasn't their primary guy that they were recruiting that year, because the guy that was recruiting me was the assistant coach, and he said the head coach has these guys that he's looking at, but I'm going to be advocating for you. In the end, it didn't work out. And then later, Coach K got on board. I mean, the two Ottawa schools were recruiting me, but Ottawa U was really recruiting me heavy. Yeah. But Carleton wasn't. It was more like Dave had this kind of, I'm not going to toot your horn for you type attitude. Okay. But, you know, I'd love for you to come to Carleton. Yeah. But when it came down to it, I really wanted to go away. I wanted to leave the city.
Oh, okay.
So
did Dion do any?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Dion was behind that, because I think Andy had reached out to him. Okay. And he put my name to Coach K, and then Coach K came down to actually one of the Phoenix workouts, and, you know, it was pretty much a done deal by then. But it took a while for me to say, you know what, I'm going to go to St. FX. I was really bent on going to the States. Yeah. And interesting story was, it was probably my last last month or last 2 months of high school. At this point, Coach K and I have been in communication regularly, but I was also talking to a school which is called Binghamton, which is in upstate New York. And
because we did a lot of tournaments.
Yeah, exactly.
We did the Gym Rat tournament.
Especially, we did a lot of tournament in the New York State
Buffalo,
area.
if I'm
Yeah,
not
exactly.
mistaken, yeah.
So they were on. I was speaking to them, and I was supposed to go on my recruiting trip like this weekend coming up, and I just got so tired of talking to these other schools, these other D1 schools, and getting the old runaround.
Yeah.
You know, you could come in, you be behind this guy, or you know, we were looking at these other guys before you, and we weren't really, the transparency wasn't good enough for me. But the only guy that was consistent and transparent and to that point he was so consistent that he got annoying for me. And it was Coach K.
Yeah.
So I remember sitting in class at Woodruff and I was weighing it out and I was like, you know what, man? I don't want to go on another visit to some school and not have it work out, whatever. So I was like, you know what? The only person who's really been consistent, it was Dave DeVero and Coach K, but because I wanted to go away, Coach K kind of like had the upper hand. So
I mean, I'm sure Ottawa U is really feeling it that you didn't go there. You could have definitely helped end that Carleton run. But so you go to St. FX. You know, how was that? Did you guys end up winning anything? I know when Dion was there, they won the first year. How was your experience?
My experience there was great because the year I went there, they weren't supposed to be good.
Okay.
They had a couple guys that were hurt. They had lost the core of the last bit of those guys that played on their last championship team. Those guys had graduated.
Okay.
So it was kind of like a rebuilding year. But Coach K, he's a great recruiter, and he brought in a bunch of guys and it worked. And what was also key was Dion was still there. Dion was in his first year. It was my first year. And he was like a big mentor for me before I got there. So it was good to be playing behind somebody who's looking out.
Yeah.
But what was even more clutch, there's a guy that played at Woodruff named John Bell.
Yes.
John Bell. Everybody, if you're familiar, he was the Woodruff guy back then, right?
Yeah.
So
Small guy, but can score.
Yeah. John Bell.
Kind of like Mighty Mouse back, like Damon Stoudemire.
Right. Exactly. So he was at Algonquin, and then
he was killing it all.
Yeah. And I remember, I think he transferred in September. He was talking to Coach K. He wanted to go to St. FX, and he finally got the green light in September. So like I was there maybe 2 weeks, and then he showed up, and it was like. It was major for me because this is a guy I know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I grew up watching John Bell. We went to the same high school. I'm also friends with his younger brother, so that was huge for me. So we ended up having a pretty solid team. We went to the finals, the CIS finals at the time against Carleton, and I think we ended up losing by 4. Interesting enough, my wife is actually cousins with Ryan Bell.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm telling this story because he
and he played Phoenix too, though.
He didn't really play Phoenix. He was a Wolverines.
Oh, okay.
He played. He
was connected with Andy somehow too.
Yeah, his Andy's married to his aunt.
Oh, okay, that's what it was. Okay.
So a couple weeks ago, he sent me actually this Ottawa Citizen article where I was guarding Oswaldo, and it was in that game. Okay. And I think the score was 63-59, and I read the article. And, you kind of like. Instant regret of like, you not an instant regret, but it's like flashbacks of like, like how the game went and what you could have done better. And I remember reading it, and it was at there's a point in the article where it talked about us taking the lead in that game with like 3 minutes to go or whatever, and I don't know, man. A couple mistakes, and
that's the thing about Carleton is there's such like a well-oiled engine that if you're not on your if you make a couple of mistakes, they'll capitalize. And Oswaldo always came through with those big threes, coming off like 6 screens.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing.
Tough.
That's what made them tough is that they had multiple weapons, but everybody played their part. So it was definitely moved. They were definitely a well-oiled, well-coached machine. So everybody knew where they were supposed to be at every time, and they made shots.
This was when the finals were still in Halifax?
Yeah, it was in Halifax, exactly.
So I'm sure you guys had a lot of fans.
We had it, but surprisingly, they also they brought a lot of people with them. I remember that game. Even though we had our fans, they also had a very solid. I remember looking in the crowd and seeing a lot of Carleton people, even people I knew, and I was like, yo, in high school you guys were cheering for me and you guys were cheering against me.
It is what it is, man. It is what it is. So at what point in your university career did you realize that you'd have a future in basketball? You'd be able to make money.
Right.
You think about playing professional and you got to be good, but like you start clicking in like man, I'm really good. I can make a career out of this. I can make some money,
right?
You know, and have a great opportunity. What point in your university career did that happen?
I'll probably say, I want to say about either around my second or third year. And I say this because at that point, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with basketball, right?
Okay.
I was going to school to be a police officer. So that's what was ultimately my end goal. And interestingly enough, I say this because I remember speaking on MSN. I was on MSN back then.
Yeah, how could you forget about MSN?
And I was
ICQ and MSN.
Yeah, and I was talking to Japheth Mazaruka, a St. Pat's guy, and also a Carleton
police
guy.
officer as well. Now.
Yeah, and he played. He did his thing in basketball, and he was playing professionally in Iceland.
Okay.
And he was telling me, and I remember having a conversation with him, and he was telling me, yeah, you know, competition's good, man, but if you were over here, you'd probably be killing these guys. Trust me. And I started thinking, and that kind of put that seed in my head.
Okay.
And I was thinking about it, and I remember, you know, just based on like how things were going at St. FX in terms of my career-wise, I felt confident enough from conversations like that, and also at the time I was a part of the national team program, so I played international competition during the summers with Team Canada, so I was kind of groomed into that kind of competition. So I spoke to my coach the start of my last year. I only did 4 years in university.
Canadian, you did 5. A lot of guys do 5 years.
I only did 4. And I remember speaking to my coach at the start of my 4th year, and I said, you know, I don't think I'm going to stay for 5th. You know, I'd like to go out there and see what's out there. I'd like to, you know, go play overseas. And he said, you know, well, okay, that's, you know, I'm disappointed that we're not going to have you for as long as we wanted you, but, you know, I definitely have a few agents and stuff in mind that, you know, I could plug you into.
Nice.
And after we'll pick it up after the season, because, you know, there's nothing really going on right now in that sense because, you know, they're doing their season or whatever, but there's a period where it's going to
At least he was on board.
Yeah, for sure.
That's perfect.
Yeah, for sure.
So any accolades in university that you want? Like, you know, I know you were, I don't want to take anything away from your career because we're going a little bit quick.
Yeah.
But any accolades that you had, I'm sure you had a lot.
Yeah, I had a few. I think, I guess the most notable one would be the Defensive Player of the Year award, which at the time it was given. It was the first time they ever gave that award out in Canadian university basketball sports.
The farming back in Jamaica, man.
Yeah, exactly. So the first 2 times they gave it out, I got it. I got the
nice.
award, and the first 3 times they gave it out in my conference, I got it. And obviously, there was a year where I was Male Athlete of the Year at St. FX, which was pretty cool for me.
Nice.
Because, you know, it's like the male athlete of all the university sports on campus, so that was a big deal. So that was really cool. So with those awards, and obviously a couple conference titles, we had a couple of those. Silver medal at CIS, you know, that first year we lost to Carleton. So a few things.
Yeah, so you had a really
for sure.
really nice university career in Canada, and then let's talk about going pro. Your first deal, I think you said you went to Bulgaria, correct? Belgium, sorry.
Yeah.
How was it like, number one, acclimating to, you know, the Belgium culture and basketball, you know, being a full-time job? Like, how was that your first year?
It was it was interesting, but I'm going to tell you I actually really struggled my first year overseas. I don't really talk about it like that, but like I think at this point of my life, like I could be really straightforward and honest about it. I really struggled, and I
more in basketball or in life?
Basketball. It was the basketball that I struggled with, and it was the thing with that. It was I kind of lost my confidence early. It was a huge reality check first and foremost. And I'll tell you, when I first got there, I met the team at a tournament in France, and I was smoking because I just came off a bronze medal with the national team at the FISU Games. So I was A1 shape, shots were clicking, my handles were good, everything was on point. And then I hit a rough patch. And the thing is, when you hit overseas, especially the way the business is set up, is if you're not consistent enough, they're always going to have you go to practice.
Because there's not enough games.
Yeah. So you go to practice, and there's a guy there that they just brought in who plays your position. So, and that kind of happened. I actually knew the guy was coming, but he was really good. And then they brought another guy in who was really good. He was like, at the time, he was the second all-time leading scorer in the Big 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his name is Andre Emmett. I think he was drafted.
Played with my brother, actually.
Yes.
He passed away.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. He was drafted by the Grizzlies.
Okay.
So he had a stint. I've told people this all the time. at that time, he was the best scorer I've ever.
Yeah, I've seen him play.
Yeah,
he was super athletic too.
Yeah, he can score. He could flat out score. And that was
play
his thing.
defense, but how was it as a? And this is probably the next point. Foreigners don't play defense; they just score, right?
Yeah, and I think that was my saving grace.
Okay.
Was the fact I got a lot of the coach.
See, kids, you got to play your defense.
The coach actually, that was my default. Was my offense didn't really like get me to where I thought it was going to get me to my first year. It didn't. Yeah. And my defense was my default. You know, my coach I was most cases I would start a lot of games, but I was also sixth man depending on the matchups. And that was the big thing. I'll get in the games early because they'll need me to go and get stops. So my defense carried me pretty much my whole life.
Nice. So
yeah, with that, and yeah, you're right. Foreigners don't play defense.
No, man.
You're there to score. They pay you to score, and if
they got that Ole defense, they
just
go by.
yeah. But it was cool too. Also, the coach at that time was a guy from Canada. He played CIS. He went to UVic. His name is Tom Johnson. So he was kind of familiar with the Canadian CIS basketball scene at that time. So when the agent I was working with at the time reached out to him, he already knew who I was.
Nice.
So and I went over there. He took me under his wing, but like I said, my game didn't catch up to the rate it needed to at the time, my offense at least. And I think a lot of that had to do with I lost my confidence early. So, you know, but thank goodness I actually could play defense, so that became my default. So
nice.
It worked out somehow.
So then after Belgium, I believe you went to play in Romania. So now you got some years under your belt.
Yeah.
How was it, man? Just like looking back, like how was that lifestyle? How was that getting paid to play basketball, right? Like everyone has that dream.
Yeah,
everyone that plays basketball wants to go to the NBA. They don't realize how difficult it is.
Right.
They want to go play university. They don't know how difficult that is.
Right.
To go play ball in Europe as a Canadian.
Yeah.
And I always thought to myself, like, if you were a guy that was 6'7", your playing style, like, you would have, NBA would have been a real possibility, right?
Possibly, yeah.
But so how was it, man? Just being a full-time basketball player?
It's definitely great. I mean, your job is basketball. You're getting paid, and that's the other thing. That's the unique thing about that is, it is your job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now, like, being punctual is an issue. Like, you could be fined for not being where you're supposed to be at a certain time. If you're losing too much, they start looking at, maybe cutting your contract and based on how you're performing or not performing.
Correct.
So it's really like, it's a lot of pressure.
It's a cutthroat business.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure. And I think a lot of people who have been in that kind of business understand that, it's you have to perform. You have to perform, and if you don't perform, you could lose your job. But I mean, the experience is great, because who wouldn't want to be like paid to do something that they love?
Exactly.
And I think it's also tough. It's very taxing on your body, because especially during the early parts of the season, you're practicing twice a day. Before you even start your season, you're doing all these intense training. And one thing about Europeans, like, a lot of people thought Andy and them make you run. You're gonna run.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you go over there and you're in the best shape of your life. The first couple weeks is you're running. When I was in Romania, I remember one team I played for. They took us into the mountains with a Serbian coaches.
I was gonna say my brother had a Serbian coach too, and I remember they're
Serbian coaches are like, it's like playing for a military.
They got anger issues.
It's like playing for a military general. And I remember like they took us into the mountains where like the Romanian army trained.
Oh wow!
And that's where we were trained doing our dry land training, and it was a lot of running. Serbian coaches love to run. We didn't touch a basketball because there's no courts in the mountains.
Exactly.
But we ran.
Yeah, I remember my brother telling me that he had a Serbian coach or something, Eastern European. I can't remember if he was Serbian or Slovenian. They played a full court pressure defense the whole game, and I think my brother told me after like halfway, all the players were like, "Yo, we gotta stop this, man. Like, we're good. Like, you don't need to be doing this full time. It's not high school where you're pressing and stuff. But it's different." So, how many years total did you play pro?
I'd say I played 5. I played I played 3 in Romania and 1 in Belgium, and in between that, I had played for a Canadian team in this North American League.
Okay.
So I played for a team in Halifax called the Halifax Rainmen, but most of our games were played in the States, and including Puerto Rico.
Did you play with the lethal shooter guy? The guy on Instagram.
No.
He played on that team too. I just saw it.
Really?
I was on his Instagram and
get out.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't.
But you can see the court was that Halifax Coliseum court.
Oh, okay.
So he played. Okay. I can't remember if it was that Canadian League that was way back when Skyhawks were here. Anyways, that's a side note.
Right. That league happened. It was called the PBL, so it happened right before the and a lot of those teams that were in the PBL actually ended up coming to Canada in different provinces and establishing themselves that way. So
nice. Okay, no, sorry to cut you off. So looking back at your professional career, any standout moments that you had, man? I'm sure you had a lot. And I really hate that I'm kind of rushing this, but because this is, like I said, you're really pillar. You talk to other guys that came after you, and they all speak so highly about you. And we'll talk about trench life quickly. But looking back at your career, any standout moments?
I can't really just pick one moment, to be honest. Actually, probably playing with the national team, because I played against a lot of guys that I've watched over the years go to NCAA schools, play guys that are still in the NBA, guys that you knew back then in high school or university that they're going to have a NBA career. To what level you may not have known back then, but watching them do their thing right now, you could, those are guys I was playing against.
Looking back at the pictures, and those are the guys you get contracts for. You play good against them.
Exactly. You play good in front of the right person, watching that game, and you're good, man.
So how was it like transitioning back to life like you came back to Ottawa? How was that like how was that transition back?
It was, I want to say it was easy, because at the time when I came back here, I had my now wife and I were in a relationship.
Okay.
And the year I stopped, I was done in May. I came back, I got engaged in June.
Okay.
And so like coming back, that was
like the next chapter.
That was the next chapter. I knew that was happening, because even at that point also, my body was pretty beat up. I had I had a torn meniscus in each knee, and one of them wasn't rehabbed properly. So like,
man, I've done it twice. Meniscus, and that's a tough one. Man.
I was in a lot of pain.
Knee gets swollen real quick.
So I was in a lot
clicking and all that stuff.
A lot of pain and a lot of discomfort that last season. So it made it easy for me to like kind of bow out and leave the game like that.
Because you're not a type of guy that can go 50% or 80. Like
no, exactly. And I remember after having the second one, it was pretty much back to back.
Yeah.
After having the second one, I remember I was really disappointed at the things I couldn't do anymore.
Yeah.
So that was also a game changer for me. But like I said, the transition was pretty smooth, because I was now moving into the next step of my life, because I've already thought this out. I said to myself, at 30, I wanna have at least somebody in my life that I want to be thinking about marrying. And at that point, I was there.
Yeah, and you were a family man. You said your family was very important to you. Was your brother married at the time as well?
Yeah, he was married. Yeah, he was married a while. Yeah, he's been married a while. So for me, it was like, I knew who I wanted to marry. And most of our relationship was long distance, because I was overseas most of the time, right?
Still MSN, or was WhatsApp there?
What was it? No, it was it's
Skype.
Skype, yeah, that's it. I remember, it's Skype, and I think I had yeah. So it was
the Nokia. You probably had some Nokia phones that went out here.
What was it? I had it was a little slide phone I had over there. It wasn't an Apple or anything like that. So.
Yeah, that stuff didn't exist, man.
Yeah, right. So when I came back here, that was the next move for me, without a doubt. And I just moved right there, because I kind of, not that I owed it to her, because whatever, but she showed her commitment. Obviously, it was somebody I was very passionate about as well. So it was a no-brainer that would be the next step in her life. So
nice. And you guys have children now?
Yeah, we've been married 6 years. Yeah, 6 years, and we have 3 kids.
That's beautiful.
3 kids. So yeah,
that's amazing, and I'm sure you're a great father. Let's talk about trench life.
Right.
It's like a whole movement. It's a company, and you're the CEO and the face of it.
Yeah.
You got me a gift. I don't know if we get this on camera, but I'll be happy to try this out. Let's talk about it, man. What does it mean? What does it mean to you?
Right.
How did it come about?
Right. So the whole trench life thing, actually, it started my first season in Romania, and what had happened is between Belgium and Romania, I had taken some time off.
Okay.
And that's when I played for that team in Canada, Halifax Rainmen. But what happened was my father was sick when I came back from Belgium, and I didn't feel comfortable going back, so I took some time off to be close to home and so on.
Okay.
So because of the recession that happened at that time in 2008, that year I took off made it extremely difficult for me to go back, because teams wanted players that were consistently playing.
Correct.
And I wasn't. So when I went to Romania, it was kind of like an opportunity I was hoping to get back, also to redeem myself from that first year in Belgium. I felt like I owed myself to prove that I could really play at that level. So I went to Romania, and it was just, trench life was just my way of saying, you know, put the work in and get the results you want. Get in the trenches. Don't be afraid to get dirty. Don't be afraid to do the dirty work if you want results. And that's
play
what
that defense.
That's ultimately what
well, he's dead now, but we can't really.
That's ultimately what trench life is. You know, is work. Don't be afraid to do the work that you want to get the results you want.
Yeah.
And what I was doing is I would make these posts before my practices and before my games on trench life, on Facebook. Sorry, and then my hashtag would be trench life. And then at the end of the season, you know, I was like, you know, that really helped me. You know, what can I do with this to kind of like keep it with me? And I just thought, like, you know, I was a basketball player. I like gear at that time. You know,
correct.
For basketball players, gear is a big deal.
For sure.
So
you want a comfortable.
So I remember getting some basketball shorts made. I came back to Ottawa and I was just basically selling it out of my gym bag, out of my mom's car, or whatever. And the response was good. You know, I got a nice following. I got nice support, and then each year I'd release something. I released some. I think the following year I released some T-shirts, some more shorts, and then I introduced like a crew neck, and a winter hat, and then I was still just hand to hand selling it, nice, like, you know, just around the people I knew or whatever. And then in 2019 I made the move to get a website and go from there. And it's still an uphill grind for sure, because, you know, with selling clothes, you kind of have to convince people that what they're accustomed to buying, like, you're providing something just as good.
Correct. And you're going against a lot of giants.
Right, exactly. So it is definitely a tough industry to navigate.
Playing basketball, it's like some guys feel like they're sponsored by, you know what I mean? Like they're loyal. Like me personally, I like a certain shoe and I stick with it.
Right.
And you think like Nike's paying me to wear them. Man, I'm buying these and doing all this stuff. And
but that's what Nike has done though. Exactly. They have made you feel like, you know, this is yours.
Part of the family.
Yeah, this is yours. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to get people who have already committed themselves to certain brands.
But you got a lot of local
definitely
people that played Ottawa U, and you see that going on and whatnot, and respect you. And there's still people that use that and comment on your Instagram.
Right. I get a lot of support. And what I'm trying to, the next level for me now is kind of like, I'm trying to ride my younger brother's wave. You know, he's in the NFL now, so I've been talking to him about ways to kind of like connect with the people that are around him, and he gives me advice on what to do and what to put out and stuff like that. So it's still a work in process. There's a lot of moving parts that could make it work, and there's a lot of moving parts that make it difficult. And we're just really trying to master that craft now to get it to a point where our production is bang bang, where we could get stuff on demand, and as well as, you know, get the quality stuff that's in. The sweater, it has to be in.
Yeah, the sweater looks very nice.
The sweater definitely is nice. It's not out yet. We're working on. This will probably be out like next year, to be honest.
Your brother probably needs like what, a triple XL to get in one of
Ironically, no, man. He's triple X is his highest.
Okay.
He wears a double. But the way sizing works now, and I just started realizing that like not too long ago, is that the measurements are different. Like a triple X would be like the measurements for like a 4X, a double X more so kind. That's why you see guys, I don't condone it, but you know, the super tight clothes or whatever. Yeah. So now,
which is different because it's super baggy.
For me, I've been a double X my whole life, but now when I put on a double X, it's really loose.
Oh, okay.
But then I put on an XL and it's really snug.
Fit in. Okay. Interesting. So you're dropping some knowledge on this.
If you want the bigger sizes, obviously you get your size or a size up, or if you want it to fit how the kids are wearing their clothes these days, you gotta, you know, get a size down.
Yeah, it's funny how the style changes. Like when we were younger, those baggy tees, like those Foot Locker 3X tees that everyone would wear. And everyone would just wear white. It was just always white.
And that's what I'm saying, though. Those T-shirts.
And those baggy shorts, man.
And then you look at those measurements, like those now would be like what's equivalent to like a 5, 6X, you know. So that's
interesting. So it goes with the style. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Exactly.
So your professional career as well, not only are you, you know, owner of a company, but you also work for OC Transpo.
Right.
So how did that come about? You know, obviously it's nice being a professional basketball player. You made a lucrative career, but you gotta, you know, also support your family and
exactly. So when I was done, when I was done, I was kind of like looking for an opportunity of what else to do. I was thinking of OPS.
Correct.
That's one place I was looking at. But I also had a friend that worked at OC Transpo, and he was on me, apply, and eventually like I applied. He walked me through the process, and then I got the call, and then eventually I did the training, obviously, and then I got on the road, and I really enjoyed it. So that's been it for me. I drove the bus for 5 years, and I'm currently now on as a light rail operator. And the thing about OC is like there's unlimited opportunities there, so nice. I think it's a good work environment. And
how was it as someone probably rode the bus as a kid to now being? Is it kind of like you ever think about that? Like I don't know if it's something you ever thought about. Like man,
yeah, I never in a million years. This was not even on my list of careers to be when I was looking at career opportunities as a kid. This was not one thing I was looking at, but. It is interesting, obviously, and obviously, you see get to interact with a lot of kids and see where they're at. You interact with a lot of people. It's a great way to see the city.
For sure.
I mean, when I was driving the bus, I knew every back street, every shortcut, if there's traffic going on over here, I knew what route to take to get to here quicker or whatever. But kind of losing it a little bit. It's still there, but because now I'm a light rail operator, I'm just on a train going from east to west. So
it's still, I'm sure you see cool going. I haven't been on the light rail yet. I haven't rode a bus in a long time. So I'm gonna have to check it out. Just because it looks cool. There's a lot of money. I ran for city council in 2014 when they were talking about this, and so I definitely got to check it out. And it was you see it. I see it a lot when I'm going to Orleans. You see it along the highway. So I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, the new development. Yeah,
that's awesome. I have to ask this question before we leave. You mentioned your brother.
Yeah.
How is it? And for those who don't know, Neville Gallimore.
Right.
Drafted, I believe, third round.
Yeah, third round, yeah.
From the Dallas Cowboys, which is America's team, biggest following. Personally, I'm not a fan, but I respect him because he's from Ottawa. I knew you. Talk about that joy of seeing your brother get drafted and being a part of the team, not just like being on the team, like being a part of the team.
Yeah, he's a special kid, and I think it's going to be a unbelievable historical moment for my family. And just to see him,
because he went to Oklahoma too, which was a big deal in itself.
Which is also a big school. So just I remember I messaged him actually just 2 days ago, and I said, "Yo, bro, you actually played for the Dallas Cowboys," and it's just a thing that I lived with this guy. We both lived at my parents' house, and I never even thought he would have been in this position, but it got to a point where you saw it developing, and like I think I spoke to you off camera about. We wanting him to get out of Ottawa because he's such a nice kid and a lot of people gravitated to him, but he wasn't necessarily in his best favor or best interest because they weren't on the path that we wanted him to go. So that's why we were eager to get him out, and he went to a prep school, and I mean the rest is history. But the biggest takeaway from all this is that my father is actually a blind man, so he's never seen my brother play.
Wow.
But
has he always been blind, or
he's been blind since about 2010. He's been losing his eyesight since like the 90s.
That's when you said your father was getting sick.
Right, from the 90s, but then eventually
that's amazing.
It just went, and this was before Neville really like hit his stride to really pursue football. So my dad has never seen him play, but for me it's special like watching his face, hearing his last name.
For sure.
He might not know who's saying his last name, but, he knows something happens
that hard work,
when
man.
He hears Neville Gallimore on the TV.
Sure.
So that's like the biggest takeaway for us is that he's taken our family name and put it somewhere where...
Which is tough to say because if someone knew you, you kind of took it to those heights. So for someone to exceed that, that's a really compliment to you as well.
So that's big, and I think, and I'm happy for my parents especially because they did everything right. They did what they're supposed to do as parents, and I think they deserve to have this moment. And for sure, like for us, obviously, my kids get to see this.
Of course,
my brother's kids get to see this, and also a lot of people around the city get to see that there's a local kid
for sure
playing on America's team. So you put the work in. You get in the trenches and put the work in. Like you will see the results you want.
I know that there was a couple of Canadians on his team too, if I'm not mistaken. Last year there was a couple of Canadians.
Right. I think I forgot the guy's name.
He was from Windsor. Crawford.
Yeah. Tyrone Crawford, I believe.
Yeah. So,
I think he retired at the end of last year.
So that's cool. I mean, man, for looking at it and you there's a connection, and the best part about it is that his last high school was St. Pat's.
Yeah, you had to say that. But crazy. It's crazy too because me being a West End guy, a Woodruff guy, and here, eventually my parents moved to the South, and my little brother goes to St. Pat's, which was like the team for me to beat growing up with St. Pat's. So, yeah, that's pretty funny.
I appreciate that.
Life is funny, man.
It is, man. And I got to ask this question because we ask all our guests this question, and I kind of gave you dropping before we started shooting. If you can go back to your younger self as an athlete, what advice or what would you kind of do different? And if you can go back to yourself as a student, what advice would you give yourself?
If I could go back as an athlete, I would probably tell myself, become more of a student of my craft.
Okay.
I was fortunate to be big and strong and athletic, especially during different stages of my age group. I was always among the biggest, strongest, fastest. I think I would be learn to be more of a student of the game, which I learned later, but it was at the end of my career when my body was kind of like failing me, I guess. So, but learn to be more of a student of the game where, not so much, even though I have those physical abilities, to be more of a cerebral player. I think that would have made my career longer or extended my career a lot more, and obviously given me more knowledge and insight that, in terms of understanding the in and outs of basketball outside of being strong and fast. So definitely that.
And then as a student?
As a student, I joke, I talk to myself a lot. And I joke.
As a bus driver?
Exactly, even because I work nights.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I was sitting behind the wheel and staying awake by having conversations with myself. And I remember one of the conversations I had is, maybe I shouldn't have tried so hard to be a good student. I should just focused on basketball. Because it's silly. I know. I'm not telling kids to do this.
Yeah, don't do it.
But I've made more money as a basketball player than I have done with the degree I have.
But they're not all kids are blessed to be
exactly.
Strong,
so I'm not
6'3",
exactly.
6'4".
So I'm not telling kids don't follow what I said, but
you might have to edit this out.
Yeah. But if my kids are watching this, I'm gonna, as a student, obviously I was committed and dedicated as a student. I was writing a thesis my last year at St. FX. I was doing an honors thesis, and I was doing a story about transitioning into the Canadian medical system as a black female nurse from various countries around the world, and the challenges and how it doesn't always, even though you're a nurse abroad.
Yeah, my mom was a nurse from Lebanon.
It doesn't translate to you becoming a nurse and the stages you have to go through to go back. A lot of times, even though you're qualified and you're capable of doing the job here, you have to go back through the school system and do it all over again. So that's what I was looking at, and I failed the thesis. There was I forgot what it was, but it was a while back. But I ended up failing the thesis. But I remember thinking like, that's part of the reason I could have went back and finished and did it right and finished it with a fifth year.
Yeah.
But I was so upset about,
because it's reality,
that happening. Like, I spent the whole year working on this. How could this happen, right? Yeah. So when that happened, I was like, I'm for sure out of here. I don't want to come back here. I don't want any parts of this school anymore. So I probably would have told myself, go back, do that, finish the thesis, and it'd be something you could have with you forever.
And other people, it could have impacted other people as well.
And even if I finish it, that would have probably translated into the career I would have in terms of me pursuing probably a master's or a PhD because that was a very personal topic. Yeah. Because my mother worked in a nursing home her whole life, and I was actually planning on dedicating that thesis to her. Yeah. So it would have been something special for sure.
Reach out to this professor, man.
It's all good, man. I mean, it was something that it hurt my feelings that I failed, but it hurt my feelings in a way like I was like, you know what, man, I'm good. Yeah. I'm just gonna go overseas and play ball.
You can catch me on YouTube.
You can catch me.
I know our producers.
I graduated.
See, that's the moral of the story. He did graduate. So don't think that he didn't.
I did.
We're not talking high school. We're talking university.
Yeah, I did graduate. I have my degree, and the rest is history.
Perfect.
But like I said though, like I haven't used the degree. I've played basketball. I've been all over the world. I've probably made more money. It wasn't crazy money, but I haven't used my degree, and now.
But that's the whole point of this podcast, and I know we're going way over time. Yeah. But the whole point of this podcast is to talk about how sports and the skill sets that you gain out of sports can translate into life. Right. Like your competitiveness, your punctuality of being. Like Phoenix was really, being 5 minutes early is not on time. Like you got to be there super early to be on time. Little things like that and communication. These skills are what translate into real life, right? So it's good that you touch on that. Quick shout out. I know you talked about Andy, Coach Waterman and Adrian. Big mentors before we finish off that you want to kind of give a shout out to.
Yeah, definitely shout outs to Adrian Cadet first and foremost, because she's the one that really saw something in me. And the biggest takeaway from Adrian was I was a mediocre student until I met her. But she had this thing like, you can't play for me if you can't perform in school, because if I need you to be a smart player and you're a knucklehead in school, chances are you're going to – that was her philosophy, and I totally agree. And so that made me even buckle down even more in high school to get my grades to a point where I could qualify to go to university. And then obviously she's the one that introduced me to Andy Waterman, because to her she was like, this kid is special. I think he could benefit from work if we work together. I think we could do something special with this kid, and they did. And shout outs to Andy Waterman. I'm also married to his niece.
You kind of have to. And he's a big guy too.
Yeah. So I'm married to his niece, so I'm in the family. I stayed in the family, so yeah. But shout out to.
So they had a whole plan for you.
Yeah, man. I think that was the plan, right? Yeah. To steer me in that direction, yeah.
Anyone else, real quick?
Shout outs to my parents. I love my parents because obviously they without them there's no me, and just for all the sacrifice they've made to get me to this point in my life. Yeah. They still parent to this day.
Doesn't stop with immigrant parents. I still get calls from my mom asking me.
They still call me.
Yeah, and we don't even live at home.
Yeah.
Did you eat today?
Yeah, they
you
still
sound a little off. Are you sure you're hungry?
Your voice is a little rough. Are you dressing warm enough?
Yeah. Shout out to our wives too. Yeah, they hold it down.
Definitely shout outs to my wife. She's probably one of the most amazing women I know, and I'm amazed by her. She's definitely the smartest person. It used to be my brother. Yeah. I can't give him that credit anymore because I live with my wife. Yeah. But but my wife is the most intelligent person I know, the most resourceful person I know. She makes everything look easy, and it's like a daily motivation for me. Like, yo, even she's my wife, but I'm like, I can't be outdone today. I gotta be on my game today, right? Okay. And then shout out to my older brother. He paved the way for me. He made a lot of sacrifices to enable me to go chase my dreams as a basketball player. And then shout out to my little brother for what he did and taking our family name and putting it someplace where I couldn't have done so.
Nice. Appreciate that. Well, listen, I always talk about shout-outs. I'm going to give a couple of shout-outs myself. I know we're way over time. I apologize. But I'm going to give a shout-out to my parents. Yeah. I always interview people and I have these conversations. So I'm going to give a shout-out to my parents, my older brother as well, who's a big mentor in my life. And then, for sure, my wife for sure really holds things down. Right now, we're at night. Not a lot of people know this. It's at night. Our wives are probably putting our kids to sleep, doing things for us to give us, the opportunity to kind of make a difference in the youth in the lives of youth. So shout out to my wife and my two kids. So thank you very much. I hope you guys watch this and say, you know what, my dad is cool. Yeah. They're still young now, but listen, man, this has been a pleasure. Yeah. I hope
Sorry to cut you off. I got a point. Actually, when I bought my engagement ring, it was your mother that.
Oh, okay. Nice. So it must be a good ring.
Yeah.
Give you a discount?
No.
Okay.
I didn't ask.
My mom's a wonderful woman.
So I didn't ask for. I was professional.
I'm sure she gave you a good. Good deal.
But she knew what I wanted, and
There you go. Small world. The world is always connected.
She's cool. So shout out to your mom. Shout out to your dad. Because remember your dad coming to all the games and stuff, and driving us out of town and all that kind of stuff.
See, man, our parents. We're very fortunate. I know we talked about this earlier. That single parent, which is a struggle in itself, right? Yeah. It's a struggle, and it's a very popular story. And I'm not taking anything away from that because those mothers that do that, it's a very sacrifice.
For sure.
We're very fortunate that we had our parents around us. Yeah. They worked their butts off. It wasn't always what people may have thought, that it was just a perfect household. They were working 7 days a week, working so hard, busting their tails, and really want to give a shout out to that. So we're over time. I really appreciate this. You had said something earlier that, sometimes the podcast, so I really hope you enjoyed this podcast.
I love it, man. I love it. I'm a guy that doesn't speak much until I have an opportunity to speak.
There we go.
I could go 20 years and not say a word. or but then have a mic in front of my face and have the and then I'm like, yo, I actually enjoy doing this.
Nice. And we might have to get you to hook us up with your brother.
Yeah,
so we'll talk about that.
Let's talk, man. Let's do that.
So perfect. All right. So thank you very much for being here, man, and subscribe, share this video because I'm sure it's going to be very enjoyable. All right.